Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio, and today we are going to be talking about fandoms, and more specifically is people need to stop blaming the fans for being so jaded. And I know this is my Chris Crocker moment here, and for those of you that don't know who Chris Crocker is, well, this one clip pretty much sums it up.
Leave Brittany alone! Please.
Yeah, nobody remembers the name Chris Crocker, but they remember the "Leave Britney alone." Anyway, I'm not gonna do it. And how I got inspired to do this video was that the Indiana Jones 5 trailer, Indiana Jones and what is it, the dial of. Hold on, I think I have it pulled up. No, I don't actually. It's some really dumb title. I'll think of it. It's like Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. That's what it is. The trailer for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny came out, and I'm sorry for flubbering over my own words, but I am doing this live. Trailer for Indiana Jones 5 came out, and I was originally going to do a reaction, but then I thought about it, and it's like, I'm just going to be insanely cynical throughout the whole thing. So I'm going to show you the trailer, and I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, and then we'll go into my other 4 talking points that I want to get into.
I miss the desert. I miss the sea. And I miss waking up every morning, wondering what wonderful adventure the new day will bring to us.
Those days have come and gone.
Perhaps not.
I don't believe in magic. But a few times in my life, I've seen things I can't explain. And I've come to believe it's not so much what you believe. It's how hard you believe it.
Who is this man?
I'm her godfather.
Related.
Get back.
Yeah, so, I mean, other than, nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, let's be honest, if the Indiana Jones name was not on this trailer, this would just be like any other generic action movie ever made. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say on the trailer. Like I said, I don't want to be too cynical in that regard, because otherwise I would effectively turn this into the pure Indiana Jones 5 trailer reaction that I wanted to. But anyway, getting back to the main talking point of this video, which is stop blaming the fans for being so jaded. The second talking point I want to mention is the fact that Andor had the lowest demand of any Star Wars show up to this point, up to the recording of this video. Now, I've already done a whole video on why Andor isn't connecting with casual Star Wars fans, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but basically this article from IndieWire that was published on November 15th of 2022, where is Andor's massive audience? Blame Disney for too many bad Star Wars stories. And there was a quote here from Tony Gilroy that I am going to read to you verbatim. I think I was surprised, the Andor showrunner said in a recent interview with Variety. I thought the show would have this gigantic, instantaneous audience that would just be everywhere, but that it would take forever for non-Star Wars people or critics or my cohort of friends to get involved in the show. The opposite happened. We ended up with all this critical praise, all this deep appreciation and understanding from a really surprising number of sources, and we're chasing the audience. right? The problem is, let's call Disney Star Wars for what it is. The sequel trilogy was completely botched. Rogue One had really no purpose. Every major plot point in Rogue One contradicted the previous. Again, I've already been over this in my why Andor isn't connecting with casual Star Wars fans videos. So like I said, I don't want to spend too much time retreading over old ground. So what did I say? The sequel trilogy was completely botched. Rogue One basically had no point to it, and Andor is a prequel to a movie that had absolutely no point. The Mandalorian was the Hail Mary pass to try to save Star Wars. It did in the beginning, then so many people got pissed off over the public firing of Gina Carano. Nobody talks about the Bad Batch anymore. The Book of Boba Fett was a frickin' meme factory. Obi-Wan Kenobi was badly written fan fiction. So yeah, surprise, surprise, nobody rushed out to go see Andor. A lot of people finally threw their hands up and just said, that's it, I'm done, you know? And a lot of people are saying, look, Andor was a great show, but it doesn't matter how good Andor was if nobody cares about it, right? You know, you could make the best Star Wars show ever made, but you know, after a decade of putting out just bad Star Wars movie after bad Star Wars movie, oh, excuse me. You know, after a decade of putting out bad Star Wars movie after bad Star Wars movie, bad Star Wars show after bad Star Wars show, of course people are going to call it quits on Star Wars. And the third talking point that I want to go into is, you know, look at the Phase 4 of the MCU. You know, honestly sit back and think about, agenda aside. Ask yourself this question, agenda aside, what was the point of Phase 4 of the MCU? What was the point to it? Right? You could argue the point to Phase 1 of the MCU is we're building up to the Avengers, right? That's why we're releasing the Iron Man solo movie, the Incredible Hulk solo movie, Captain America solo movie, and Thor solo movie, because we're gonna take these characters and we're gonna team them up together in one crossover movie. That was the point of Phase 1. Phase 2, you could argue that Phase 2 didn't have a point, but Phase 2 started to lay the groundwork for the Infinity War, right? The Infinity Stones started getting mentioned with Thor: The Dark World, and beyond that point, right? And then obviously Phase 3 was building up to Thanos and the Infinity War. But the difference between Phase 4 of the MCU and Phase 2 of the MCU is that with Phase 2, you could argue that the MCU was still in its infancy, right? It just came off the Avengers, and now they're building up to something that's more long-term. Well, now Infinity War over, right? The Infinity Saga is over. So now you're gonna do this continuation. You're gonna make it clear that this is Phase 4. This is the continuation of everything that we've built up from Iron Man onward. But again, what was the point to it? There wasn't a crossover. There were crossovers. What I meant to say was there was no Avengers movie that was really being built up to. And notice Kevin Feige had to come out and basically admit, we're building up to Secret Wars, we're building up to Secret Wars, we're building up to Secret Wars. But he also said that at the same time when he announced that, oh yeah, Phase 4 of the MCU is over. Now we're moving on to Phase 5. And remember, guys, agenda aside, I know a lot of people love to scream MCU for Marvel Phase 4, but again, agenda aside, Phase 4 of the MCU clocked in at I think I calculated it was nearly 57 hours is how long the fourth phase of the MCU is. That is longer than phases 1, 2, and 3 combined. You add in on top of that, it is the longest phase of the MCU, on top of the fact that it really had no point to it. Of course Marvel fans are starting to get burned out and jaded by Marvel, because again, Phase 4 had absolutely no point, and now I had to watch these 8 TV shows and 7 movies that may serve some purpose down the line, but we don't know, because nothing was built to in Phase 4. Again, surprise, 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 surprise. Marvel fans are burned out and are being jaded. The fourth talking point that I want now, the fourth pivot point that I want to bring up is modern Star Trek, and I'm referring to Star Trek Discovery and Picard. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't like modern Star Trek, I know that they want to point to agenda once again, but I think honestly the biggest agenda aside, I don't want to just rely on the crutch of agenda. The agenda aside, I think the biggest problem with modern Star Trek is it's way too serialized for its own good. If you go back, you watch, Star Trek, the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, those shows were largely episodic. Now, despite the fact that Deep Space Nine was serialized, however, Deep Space Nine was heavily episodic up until around Season 5, Season 6. Deep Space Nine started episodic, but got more serialized as time went on. Same with Voyager, same with Enterprise. Those were, standalone a lot of those episodes were standalone single episode storylines. You then get to Star Trek Discovery, and now, in order to understand the entire story, you have to watch from season 1, episode 1 to the season 1 finale, and only then will you get the complete story. None of the episodes can stand on their own. The same thing happened with Picard. That's why when shows like, Star Trek Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds came out, all the fans were rejoicing. Why were fans rejoicing for Star Trek Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds? Because Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds marked the return of single episode storylines, whereas Star Trek Discovery and Picard went pretty much all in on like hardcore serialization that you have to watch every episode. You have to watch it from season 1, episode 1, all the way to the end, just to get the complete story. There is no standalone episodes. If you're gonna watch Star Trek Discovery, it's a real commitment. If you're gonna watch Star Trek Picard, it's a real commitment. You have to stick with it from the beginning, and you have to see it all the way through the end, no matter how long it is. Personally, I think that's why Star Trek fans were burned out and jaded by modern Star Trek, is now it's just yet another commitment now. I can't just go in and out, right? There's no single episode storyline in Discovery, so why am I going to bother getting into Discovery? And the fifth and final point I want to talk about for, stop blaming fans for being jaded actually leans into an older video that I did. I did a video titled "Why the Fandom Menace Fizzled Out." And I think this is a point that I didn't make back then that I should have made, but I'll make it here. I think a lot of fans are now realizing that screaming into a webcam or a microphone accomplishes nothing. Honestly, ask yourself this question, even if you're a Fandom Menace defender. Honestly, ask yourself this question. What has the Fandom Menace genuinely accomplished? Is Alex Kurtzman fired from Star Trek? Is Kathleen Kennedy fired from Lucasfilm? No. These people are still there. Alex Kurtzman has not been fired from Star Trek. No matter how many times Doomcock has told you that his sources have told him that Alex Kurtzman is being fired. Kathleen Kennedy is still at Lucasfilm, no matter how many times Doomcock tells you that his sources have confirmed that Kathleen Kennedy is going to be fired this fucking week. Right? Again, screaming into a webcam or a microphone effectively accomplishes nothing. And the problem is, it's because you have both sides of this culture war that are just listening for these dog whistles, right? Now, and I caught this with Loki. I caught Earl, but I'm going to use Loki as the example for the Phantom Menace. In my opinion, they were really stretching to decry Loki as get woke, go broke. Now, if you ask any regular person, there wasn't any quote-unquote SJW propaganda, but the problem is, because their sensors are basically set, they have the amp cranked all the way up to 11, they're going to decry anything and everything as SJW propaganda, even if it isn't. And the other side does this too. The SJWs do this as well for anyone that, that leans to the right of Mao. So don't think that it's only one side of the aisle that's doing it. No, it's both sides of the aisle doing this. So as a result, that the fact that entertainment has been getting more and more partisan, because you'll have one side that will, decry a movie or TV show as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, ism, that, and the third. I'm literally losing my fucking mind trying to think of all those fucking terms. Right, you'll have one side claim the show racist, sexist, homophobic if it doesn't completely pander to all of their personal politics. But then you have this other side that if there is even a hint of SJW propaganda, even if it's not present, if there is just a teeny tiny little hint that it's there, they're going to decry, get woke, go broke, get woke, go broke. I argue that the partisan nature of entertainment now has caused many, many fans to start being jaded. And now you have all these people that are blaming the fans for being jaded when it was Star Wars that went to shit. It was the MCU that went to shit. It was Star Trek that went to shit. And it was the partisan politics that pretty much drove them out. That drove a lot of people to just throw their hands up and say, fuck it, I'm done. I'm thinking of this scene from Saving Private Ryan. I'm thinking of this scene from Saving Private Ryan. I think really sums up a good chunk of, Star Wars, Marvel, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Masters of the Universe, all of those fandoms. This is probably what they're thinking at this point.
Don't shoot him! Let him burn!
I fall into this category too. I am not here championing that we need to return Star Wars back to the glory days. We need to return Star Trek back to the glory days. We need to return Marvel back to the glory days. No. What I'm saying for all you regular people, and you're already seeing this with Andor, is walk away. Just stop watching Star Wars. Stop watching Marvel. Stop watching Star Trek. Stop watching Doctor Who. Stop watching Masters of the Universe. And if you honestly believe, I don't pay for any of those streaming services, but I'm gonna pirate all of the Marvel shows and Star Trek and Star Wars and Masters of the Universe. Guess what? How do you know that those executives aren't gonna see the torrent numbers and take it as a compliment? Remember, Game of Thrones became the #1 show on the planet as a result of torrents, right? Without torrents, Game of Thrones doesn't become the #1 show on the planet. And I argue that's why the industry started moving away from the mindset of an illegal download equals a lost sale. No. An illegal download means our show's getting more and more popular, and we can make money in other ways. So yeah, you're pirating the shows, but again, are they seeing it as an act? Are the studio executives seeing it as an act of protest, or are they seeing it as a compliment? Odds are it's probably the latter, because every single television and movie studio and every movie studio executive, streaming executive, and TV executive wants their own Game of Thrones. And if it's going to take piracy to get that, then they're just going to embrace piracy, whether you like it or not. So I am calling on all remaining fans that are feeling jaded by Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, He-Man, and whatever other fandom, She-Ra, doesn't matter. I'm calling on all other fandoms to simply just walk away from it and find something else. Okay, if you're going to be championing, we need to return these franchises back to the golden age. Sorry, hun, it ain't gonna fucking happen. A lot of those original creators have either left the projects entirely or are dead, right? Sometimes it's better to just let something die than it is to try to save it. And I hate to sound that cynical, but unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. That's why I grew disillusioned with the Phantom Menace, because they want to champion, we need to return Star Wars back to its former glory, when it's never going to go back to its former glory, because George Lucas has no goddamn interest. And whether you like it or not, George Lucas is going to eventually die. Most people that made the original Star Trek show what it is are either old and senile or dead. Most of the people that made Marvel the fucking behemoth, same thing, are either old and senile or dead, or they have no fucking interest in returning. So again, going back to what the original video topic was, I can't stand it when these media outlets are blaming the fans themselves for being jaded when there are a lot of other reasons why they're jaded from all of these franchises. But you, the fans, I'm not accusing you personally of doing this, but there is still large segments of the fan base where it's like, oh, I'm going to watch She-Hulk. I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to watch She-Hulk. And then I'm going to go watch I'm going to go watch the Nerdrotic channel, Geeks and Gamers channel. Yeah, this fucking sucks. Or I'm going to watch Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, I'm going to hate it, but then I'm going to go watch Nerdrotic and Geeks and Gamers, and yeah, this show fucking sucks. Now it's time to watch episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, blah, 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 blah. No, just turn the TV off and walk away. That is the best message you can send that is the best message that you can send right now. Just say, I'm walking away. I don't give a shit about, and I don't give a shit about this. No matter what you do, I'm not watching Andor. I'm not watching Star Wars Episode 10. I'm not watching Star Wars Rogue Squadron. I'm not watching new Star Trek show. I'm not watching the MCU version of Blade. I'm not watching Avengers, Kang Dynasty, or Secret Wars. I'm fucking done, and there's nothing you can do to bring me back in. If enough of you did that, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Paramount, Netflix would have to change their goddamn act real fucking quick. But as long as there's still a large enough portion of the fan base that hate watches this shit just to hate watch it because they want to be in on the conversation with Nerdrotic and Geeks and Gamers, yeah, this fucking sucks, nothing's gonna goddamn change, right? So do us all a favor and just walk away from these fucking franchises. And guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end it right here because I think I've dragged this out way longer than it needs to be, but you also get my point by this point, right? Just one thing, walk away, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and end it right here. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following along with me, I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I'll just see you guys next time.